Hi, my name is Marquette McClinton, and I'm a Literacy Instructional Support Leader in Network 4 for Chicago Public Schools. The video that you're about to watch is of kindergarten teachers digging into their data based on the DIBELS measures. In this session, I wanted teachers to walk away with the understanding of several different purposes. Those three objectives are as follows. I wanted teachers to understand the importance of using DIBELS measures for small group instruction. I wanted teachers to understand how to group their students based on the DIBELS measures. And lastly, I wanted teachers to walk away with an understanding of how to leverage resources to facilitate small group instruction and for their literacy centers. In this session, you will also notice that I provided teachers with a couple of resources that they could use as they're thinking about activities to support the needs of their students. One of those resources is entitled, I've Dibbled, Now What? The second resource is an online resource from the Florida Center of Reading Research. This is a free online website that allows teachers to find activities that best meet the needs of their students. I hope you find this video helpful and informative. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. So good morning to everyone, and thank you guys for coming in and being ready to dig into the data. So today's focus is going to be about the DIBELS measure specifically. And so before we really get into the DIBELS measures and the data, I just want to talk about what our objectives will be for today. So today's objectives is to know the importance of using DIBELS measures for small group instruction, how to group students based on the DIBELS measures, and then to leverage resources for whole group instruction and potentially your literacy centers. And so as always, I always like to revisit the norms. And so these are probably familiar to you, but I do want to just go over them again. So I'm asking that you guys are fully present. I'm asking that you guys are speaking your truth, that we'll work and learn together, and then we'll also trust the process. So we're going to take a look at the kindergarten DIBELS data across the board. So not just our individual classrooms just yet. First, we're going to just look at kindergarten big picture, and then we'll start to get more specific into terms of what is happening in our individual classrooms. And I always like to start with a quote. So is there a volunteer to read this quote aloud for the group?
Okay. The expectation is that if the Tier 1 core instruction is implemented with a high degree of integrity and by highly trained teachers, then most of the students receiving this instruction will show outcomes upon assessment that indicate a level of proficiency.
So what I thought about with this quote is that I know there's been a lot of discussion around the MTSS problem-solving process, making sure that those 3 tiers of instruction are in place. And we know that Tier 1 instruction is all about what is happening at the core, right? What are we doing to meet the needs of our students before we start to break them out into small groups? And so if we are doing that well, if we are making sure that our resources, our curriculum, our assessments, our instruction is at the highest level, the highest cognitive demand, then we're ensuring that our students are going to wind up or hopefully be proficient, or a vast majority of them. And then from then on, we would then use interventions and differentiate instruction to help fill the gaps for our students who are not making proficiency or not meeting proficiency. So now we're going to dig into, as I was stating earlier, the kindergarten data as a whole. So this is all of you guys' classes combined and sort of where we are. And so one of the questions that I wanted to pose to the group is, based on the kindergarten measures for MOI, what do you think is our area of strength as a kindergarten team?
First sound fluency.
So FSL.
Yes, first sound fluency. Okay. And what do you think might be the area of growth that you may want to work on with our students?
Mixed segmentation.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say PSL.
Yep, phoneme segmentation. So that's good. And so what we're beginning to sort of see now, like as a whole, there might be some potential implications for whole group instruction based on what we're seeing here, but we're still going to dig a little bit deeper. So now we're going to go into looking at the DIBELS measures by classroom. And the first classroom that we're going to take a look at is Ms. Cheston. And so same question, but a little bit different data. So based on the MOI data, what is the class area of strength? So looking at this classroom, what do you think the area of strength is? And is it similar to where we are as a kindergarten team? So you would say it's about the same? What about the area of growth? So if it is the same, what might be some potential opportunities for whole class teaching? What might you focus on in that tier 1 instruction? Because we know it starts with that first, and then we start thinking about our students' deficits.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I would say a strategy, choosing a strategy and making it clear to all students what that strategy is.
Absolutely. So you're talking about modeling.
Yes.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. So now we're going to look at our second kindergarten classroom. We're going to look at Ms. G's data, and we're going to think about the same questions. In comparison to kindergarten as a whole, is it the same area of growth? Do you see some differences?
So, for her NWF,
Nonsense word fluency.
I guess that would be her area of growth because, as Chester was saying, she's neck and neck with FSF and PSF. So she can focus on NWF.
So NWF, correct letter sounds, is what we're.
The NWF really builds upon these two, don't you think? So strengthening in these areas will ultimately strengthen the nonsense word fluency.
So let's go with that. So what does nonsense word fluency actually assess? When we are giving kids nonsense words, what are we really asking them to do?
To blend.
We're asking them to blend.
Sound out words.
Sound out words. And also, we're also isolating the vowel sound, right? But specifically the short vowel sound, right? So we're digging into all those elements. So you guys are spot on with that. So now we're going to dig a little bit deeper into the data, and now we're going to look specifically at each individual student, and we're going to look at the measures, because now we're going to think about, now that we know where our students are, how do we begin to group those students and then find the best and the most appropriate resources and teaching strategies to meet their needs. So if you turn to the next slide in your packet, you're going to see 3 students. We see their composite score, we see their FSF, their LNF, which doesn't count towards their composite score, but we're going to focus on PSF, FSF, and we're also going to focus on the nonsense word fluency correct letter sound. And so based on the data, what students should be grouped together during small group instruction?
So if we're going by just these 3 students here.
Just
right?
these 3 students. If you had 3 students and you were trying to figure out how do I group these students, which ones would you probably group together and why?
Put Cobbs and Connor together because they're both intensive, and then I would put Curry separately because he's at core, so that means he's at benchmark.
Okay. Anyone else?
Cobb's is, for first sound fluency, is green at 32, so that's close to Curry. So that's something to consider.
Interesting.
So now I'm thinking that, excuse me, we probably would do some flexible grouping, which if we're working on something like where the TRC print concepts, Cobbs and Connor would be together. However, if you're working on FSF, then you would put Cobbs and Curry together because they're pretty comparable there in that category. So that's where those flexible groupings come into play.
Any other thoughts? And the reason why I'm spending a lot of time on this one in particular is because I've been noticing some things in terms of how teachers are making decisions to group their students. So I'm just curious to see what you guys are thinking about when you're making those instructional decisions. Mm-hmm.
Well, Connor needs overall help in all areas of letter naming and the sounds that all the letters make.
Okay.
I noticed that Cobbs and Curry are pretty good with the first sound. Now, when we get to the vowel sounds, which is in the middle, they're needing that. So they're needing more intensive vowel sounds to get that CVC, to get the V in there.
Absolutely.
And then they're also needing additional support in blending those sounds to begin to read whole words. So,
You're making me smile, Ms. G.
yeah, you know,
So thank you for that.
so the middle one needs intensive support throughout.
Okay.
As in my opinion does Cobbs. However, she's got that first part. She can get that first sound. Now it's very problematic with vowels and the last sound, and both could benefit from decoding and blending their sounds.
So let's take a deeper look into the goal. So the goals for the categories give us a gauge of how far away or close to where our students should be in terms of making benchmark, right? And so if we're looking at the goal under first sound fluency, and we look at the 3 students that we have data for, it looks like Hobbs and Curry are almost neck and neck. So when I am thinking about making a instructional decision to group my students together, I don't want to disregard this composite score because that's important to look at. However, if I solely grouped my students based on that composite score, I would probably put Cobbs and Connor together. But then when I start to dig into the data even more, and I'm really looking to support them based on the DIBELS measures, they are almost light years apart, right? Connor is sitting at a 0, and Cobbs is at a 32, so he's above proficient. So it wouldn't make the most sense for me to group these 2 students together simply based on the composite score when I'm looking at the DIBELS measure and I'm seeing that Cobbs and Connor are pretty far apart. However, I would group, and I know Ms. Cheston mentioned this, so thank you, Ms. Cheston, for that. And I heard Ms. Fox chime in as well. You guys notice that for first sound fluency, both Cobbs and Curry are pretty much neck and neck. So
that's when I was talking about the flexible grouping being.
Absolutely.
Because they're together in this aspect doesn't mean for the next thing they need to be together.
So when we are making those instructional decisions, we have to really dig deeper to ensure that we're grouping our kids appropriately so that we're moving them. Because I would fear that if I put Cobbs and maybe Connor in the same group, that it may help Connor, but it might bring Cobbs down, and we want to keep him moving in that right direction. So with that being said, thank you guys for really digging into this data because that's exactly what we are about to do next. I want you to locate in your packet of materials the Network 4 DIBELS Data Meeting Protocol sheet. And what you're going to notice as we move into small group action planning is that I have a couple of different sections for you. On the far left side, this is where you'll actually list your students' names. And this is where you would actually put what is that target skill that you're going to work on. And when I'm talking about target skill, I'm specifically referring to what we've just discussed, which are the DIBELS measures. So that would be the skill that you would focus on. And then I've also included how often, and we already know this because you guys are already progress monitoring. I know that we typically say for intensive students every 2 weeks, so that's pretty standard. But notice that for strategic, we would normally progress monitor how often? About once a month, right? But if we really want to get that movement, my suggestion would be maybe closer to the 3-week mark, right? Because they may be 1 point away from either going back or they may need that extra push to be bumped up to benchmark. So in this box, essentially, you would write based on the student or the group of students and based on the strategy, you would write down if they are intensive that you're going to meet with them 2 weeks, and then you'll specifically write in that box that skill, that strategy, or how you will address that. So you may put the name of the resource. This timeline here is basically just an extra sort of checkpoint for you. So you would literally just put the date in that box. And then at the end of that date, that window, you're going to write some notes in that column to indicate if you actually saw the progress that you intended to make happen within that window of time. If not, that might be something you may want to revisit a little bit more. I don't want you guys to get married to this chart. It's just a frame to sort of help you think about the planning, but this is one way that you can document what you're doing with your groups, what resources you've used, and then where they are at the end of that window so you can make a decision on, do I need to revisit? Have they gotten and I can move on? There's tons of templates out there, but I found this one to be, not as tedious, kind of really short and to the point, and it captures everything that you need in order to know where your kids are. So let me quickly transition to some resources that you guys can use when you're trying to come up with activities to help meet the needs of your students. So one of the resources that I absolutely love, and I talked about this with you, Dr. Davis, is I've DIBELed Now What? Have you guys seen this resource before? If you haven't, Dr. Davis has a copy and I have a copy. You are welcome to look at it. And the really cool thing about how this is organized is this was actually copywritten in 2006. So I consider this fairly recent, right? It goes into the various DIBELS measures that we're using right now. Great resource. So first sound fluency, letter naming fluency, oral reading fluency. I mean, it's just tons of really good stuff. And it actually gives sample activities that you can do. Some of them don't even require any resources or materials, is what you guys already have in your classrooms. So for me, when I talk with people about what can you do, how should you be, where can you look for resources and activities? This is one of the go-to books that I like to refer people to. The second resource that I've given you guys is another really favorite resource of mine. And this is actually from the Florida Center for Reading Research. You guys familiar with that website? Everybody is. So what I gave you guys was the crosswalk. And what I like about this crosswalk is that it actually tells you what DIBELS measure is the activity focused on. So if you look here, it tells you DIBELS measure, and it actually tells you which activities support that particular DIBELS measure. It is phenomenal. And I actually pulled some sample activities from this one, which is the PA10. And what the PA10 focused on is initial sound fluency. So that's first sound fluency. So when we're thinking about activities that our kids need or measures that our kids need support with, I can look at the crosswalk as a reference to see what activities could I do to help my kid with that. And then you literally can print this out, and this can become a center. This can become part of your whole group instruction. This can become your small group instruction. And it takes it really helps us to not have to spend hours of planning because so much of the guesswork has been taken out. I think this is something that would be helpful for you guys in terms of figuring out activities to use in terms of planning. And again, I know this is, we remember all these resources and then we get into the work and it's just so many things going on and we're like, oh my God. So I like to bring back the oldies but goodies, if that makes sense, right? And let's not lose sight of these free resources that are available for us. Thinking about this in terms of your action plan, one of the activities you might actually put might be this one. Have the kids do it, and then let's maybe try one out, pick one maybe, and bring it back and let's have conversations about how the kids liked it, if it worked for you, if it made sense, and potentially use it as a checkpoint, as an assessment to know maybe they need some more work on this. But these to me are really fun and engaging for the kids. And it can be centers too. So whole group and centers. Try some out. I would love to see whatever you guys decide to use, but as long as it's conducive for where we are and the work that we're doing is my wish. So I do not want to prolong the time. It's probably after 10:30 at this point. Thank you, ladies, so much for your high engagement. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks, this was very helpful.
Good, good, good.